At my mother-in-law's birthday dinner in Rome, I noticed my seat was gone. My husband let out a light chuckle. Oops, looks like we counted wrong. The family laughed it off, but I stayed composed. So, I'm not family after all, I said quietly, then stood and left. Half an hour later, the realization hit them. I had canceled everything. The venue, the catering, every single detail. Their faces drained of color. I'm not family, I repeated calmly, though my heart was pounding like an earthquake inside me. Those words lingered in the air of the upscale Roman restaurant as a dozen pairs of eyes stared back with a mix of shock, disbelief, and barely concealed smugness. My husband Sean's offhand chuckle, "Oops, looks like we counted wrong," still echoed in my mind as I walked away from the table with no place set for me. The sting of humiliation coursed through me, but I held back tears. Instead, a strange calm washed over me as I pulled out my phone and opened the event management app I'd built my career on. I had 30 minutes before they realized what was coming, and that was all the time I needed. Before we dive in, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. Sometimes, the most powerful moments come when we reclaim our worth. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own life, this story might hit close to home. This is the story of Anna, once Boston's top event planner, now a woman taking back her dignity in the heart of Rome. Before we get started, hit subscribe to join a community that values stories of strength, self-respect, and unexpected courage. Now, let me take you behind the scenes of a marriage that looked perfect on the surface. My name is Anna Morgan Caldwell. 5 years ago, I was simply Anna Morgan, the founder of Elite Affairs, Boston's premier event planning company. I'd built it from scratch, putting myself through business school and working tirelessly. Every elegant gala, every flawless corporate event, every high society wedding in Boston had my mark on it, though I was rarely seen or acknowledged. My knack for discretion, my obsessive attention to detail, and my ability to make the impossible happen made me the go-to planner for Boston's elite. That's how I met Sean Caldwell, at a charity gala I organized for Boston Children's Hospital. Tall, impeccably groomed with dark hair and a smile that crinkled his eyes, Sean had the effortless confidence of someone born into privilege. He was charming in that rehearsed way wealthy men often are, but there was an unexpected sincerity in how he admired my work. "So you're the mastermind behind all this?" he said, gesturing around the lavish ballroom of the Four Seasons. "My mom's been hunting for the perfect planner for her charity event next month. Looks like I just found her." One event led to another, and soon I was handling events for the Caldwell family regularly. The Caldwells were Boston aristocracy, old money from shipping and railroads. Their wealth was subtle, understated, never needing to flaunt itself. It showed in the quiet luxury of their possessions and the effortless way they moved through their world. Our romance began 6 months after I started working with them. Sean chased me with the same focus he applied to the family's investments. There were warning signs from the start. The way his mother Eleanor glanced at me with thinly veiled contempt when Sean first introduced me as more than his planner. The offhand comments about my modest background. The shocked whispers when people learned I was dating a Caldwell. "You've done well for yourself," Eleanor said the first time we dined together, her smile tight and eyes cold. Self-made success is such a quaint American concept. I ignored it all because I was falling for Sean. He seemed different from his family, more open, less fixated on pedigree. When he proposed 11 months after we met, I said yes, despite the uneasy feeling I was stepping into a world that would never truly accept me. The wedding was the social event of the year. I planned most of it myself, unwilling to trust anyone else with such a personal project. Eleanor had opinions about everything. The venue was too unconventional, the menu too daring, the guest list missing certain important names. I compromised where I could, but stood firm on what mattered to me. Sean acted as mediator, but rarely stood up to his mother outright. After the wedding, the subtle undermining grew more consistent. Despite continuing to hire my company for family events, the Caldwells constantly second-guessed my choices, changed plans at the last minute, and took credit for my ideas. At family dinners, my suggestions were requested, then ignored. My professional achievements were treated like a cute hobby rather than a serious business. Anna has quite an eye for these things, Eleanor would tell her friends, patting my hand as if I were a child. It's like having a personal party planner in the family. Sean never defended me. He'd just shrug and say, "That's how my mother is. Don't take it personally." But it was personal, and it only worsened with time. The chance to plan Eleanor's 70th birthday in Rome should have been my moment to shine. A week-long celebration in the Eternal City ending with a dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant overlooking the Colosseum. I threw myself into making it flawless, using every connection I had. It was during this process that I first saw cracks in the Caldwell mask. Deposits were delayed. Vendors started calling, asking about payments. When I mentioned the delays to Sean, he waved it off, saying the family accountant was just being careful with international transfers. But then I caught a glimpse of his laptop screen left open by mistake. Investment portfolios tanking, properties heavily mortgaged, credit lines maxed out. The Caldwell fortune was evaporating. Fast. Still, I pressed on, using my company's credit line to cover deposits when necessary. I told myself it was temporary, that Sean would clarify everything once Eleanor's birthday celebration was over. Then came the morning we were flying to Rome. Sean was in the shower when his phone buzzed. I never snooped, always respected his privacy. But that morning, something compelled me to glance at his screen. A message preview from V lit up the display. "Can't wait to see you in Rome. Have you told her yet?" Without thinking, I opened the thread. Vanessa Hughes, Sean's college ex, the woman his parents had adored and expected him to marry before me. Months of messages spilled out. Plans made. Futures discussed. And yes, a baby. Their baby. Due in 4 months. I took screenshots, forwarded them to myself, then deleted everything from his phone. I packed my bags, forced on a smile, and boarded the plane to Rome with Sean and his family. Standing outside that restaurant in Rome, I had already made my decision. I wouldn't confront Sean then. I would let events play out and be ready when they did. Our flight touched down at Fiumicino just as Rome's skyline glowed beneath a golden sunset. I had arranged private cars for the entire Caldwell group. Eleanor and Richard, Sean's parents. Melissa and her husband Grant, Sean's sister and brother-in-law. Thomas and Claire, his brother and sister-in-law. 2 sets of aunts and uncles. A fleet of sleek black Mercedes vans waited at arrivals, top-tier transport I booked through Rome's finest agency. They should have been impressed. Instead, Eleanor's first words upon stepping off the plane were cutting. "I thought I asked for hotel cars, Anna. These seem ordinary." I bit my tongue, as I always did. The hotel had a scheduling mix-up. "These are actually from Lux Transport. They handle most diplomats here." My explanation fell on deaf ears. She whispered to Richard, their heads bending in the usual conspiratorial way that always excluded me. The Hotel de Russie greeted us with impeccable service, champagne flowing in the lounge, luggage whisked away by attentive bellhops. Months of careful planning had secured every detail. Suites with breathtaking views. Welcome baskets filled with Italian treats. Personalized itineraries tailored for each family member. Eleanor barely glanced at her schedule before tossing it aside. "We'll just improvise," she said dismissively. "The family knows Rome well enough." Our suite was stunning. A terrace overlooking the Spanish Steps, fresh flowers in every room, a bottle of Sean's favorite Barolo breathing on the sideboard. But the moment we entered, Sean's phone buzzed. He stepped onto the terrace, speaking quietly. "Work?" I asked when he returned. "Just some investment issues," he said, avoiding my gaze. "Let's get ready for dinner." The welcome dinner I'd planned at a cozy trattoria in Trastevere revealed the first clear sign of my exclusion. Somehow, the seating chart had changed last minute. I ended up at the far end of the table, separated from Sean by his cousin and aunt. Inside jokes flew across the table, tales of past family trips to Italy, trips I hadn't been invited to. When I tried joining the conversation about the week's plans, Melissa cut me off. "Oh, Anna, we decided to do family shopping tomorrow instead of the Vatican tour." "Family shopping?" I asked. "You know," Eleanor chimed in smoothly. "A tradition." You'd find it dull, dear. Why not check on the birthday details? That's your specialty. The pattern continued. Mornings I woke to find Sean already gone, with a hurried note about meeting his father for breakfast. The family vanished on spontaneous outings, everyone aware except me. Whispers ceased whenever I neared. Dinner reservations were switched to include old friends visiting Rome, friends who eyed me with thinly veiled curiosity, as if gauging how I was coping with what was coming. On the third morning, the opportunity came. Sean dashed off to meet his brother, leaving his briefcase unlocked. Inside, the documents confirmed my worst fears. Draft separation papers, prepared by the family lawyer, dated 2 months prior. A settlement offer that was a mere pittance compared to what I deserved. And most chilling, a script. A script detailing how Sean would announce our divorce at his mother's birthday dinner, framing it as a mutual, amicable decision. My hands shook as I photographed every page. There was in black and white. The carefully choreographed exit of the unsuitable wife. Timed for maximum spectacle, yet minimal scandal for the Caldwells. Eleanor's birthday wasn't just a celebration. It was my social death. Instead of confronting Sean, I funneled my rage into gathering proof. Each day, I found excuses to return to the suite alone, digging for more evidence. I uncovered bank statements showing massive transfers to offshore accounts, emails discussing liquidating assets before the news leaks, a handwritten note from Eleanor to Sean. Once this unpleasantness with Anna is behind us, Vanessa will be welcomed back properly. I kept my professional mask firmly in place as I continued managing the birthday preparations. I double-checked the floral arrangements, met with the restaurant manager, approved the custom menu cards, all while quietly gathering digital clues to the Caldwells' crumbling financial empire. Whenever anyone noticed my distraction, I blamed last-minute event details. In truth, I was quietly building my arsenal. The morning of Eleanor's birthday dawned bright and clear. I slipped out of bed early, without waking Sean. The day's itinerary was packed: a private morning tour of the Borghese Gallery, lunch at a vineyard outside the city, and then back to the hotel to prepare for the evening's grand dinner. As the event planner, I needed to arrive at the restaurant early to oversee every detail. While printing final confirmations in the hotel business center, I overheard Eleanor's voice at the concierge desk next door. The wall was thin, and her commanding tone cut through clearly. "There will be 12 seats, not 13, she said firmly over the phone. "I don't care what the original reservation states. The seating plan I sent is final." "No, that won't be a problem. My son is aware. His wife won't be joining us for dinner. A family matter, you understand. No questions when she leaves." A chill ran through me as everything clicked into place. The missing seat wasn't a mistake or a last-minute change. It was the centerpiece of their plan, a public humiliation crafted to make my departure seem voluntary, not their doing. I closed my laptop, gathered my papers, and took measured steps to the elevator. Inside, I pulled out my phone and started making new arrangements. If the Caldwells wanted a birthday dinner to remember, I'd make sure it was unforgettable, just not as they imagined. I arrived at a Roma restaurant an hour ahead of the others, as any professional would. The rooftop venue offered a breathtaking panorama of the Colosseum, glowing amber in the setting sun. I personally inspected every detail, from the hand-calligraphed place cards to Eleanor's favorite white peonies and roses. The champagne was perfectly chilled. The 7-course tasting menu confirmed. The 3-tiered birthday cake a masterpiece of Italian artistry. "Is everything to your satisfaction, Signora Caldwell?" asked Marco, the maitre d'. "Perfect," I said, knowing this would be the last event I'd planned for the Caldwells. Despite everything, my pride demanded nothing less than excellence. Back at the hotel, I changed into the midnight blue Valentino gown I'd chosen for tonight. As I applied makeup with steady hands, I studied my reflection. 5 years trying to fit into a world that rejected me had left their mark, but not the one the Caldwells expected. Instead of breaking me, they had steeled my resolve. The family planned to meet in the hotel lobby before leaving for dinner. I arrived on time to find them all assembled. Eleanor, radiant in vintage Chanel, diamonds catching the light. Sean's eyes flickered when he saw me, maybe recalling what drew him to me once, or calculating how soon he could be free. "Anna, darling, you look lovely," Eleanor said, air kissing near my cheeks. "We're just waiting for the cars." The drive was short, filled with forced small talk about the day's activities, ones I had been excluded from. In the elevator to the rooftop, Sean's hand rested briefly on the small of my back, a gesture that once felt intimate but now seemed staged for the elevator attendant. The doors opened onto the terrace I'd designed, transformed into an elegant dining room beneath the stars. The Colosseum loomed illuminated against the night sky, a symbol of grandeur and inevitable downfall. How fitting. Eleanor entered first, greeted by warm applause from waiting family members. One by one, everyone took their seats around the large round table I'd specified, one that should have held 13. I followed Sean, who moved straight to his seat beside his mother. I approached where my place card should have been, only to find nothing. No chair. No place setting. No sign I existed. For a heartbeat, I stood frozen, the perfect picture of confusion. Around me, conversations carried on as everyone avoided looking at me. The waitstaff, who'd confirmed the seating plan with me earlier, looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. "Is something wrong?" Eleanor asked sweetly, loud enough to draw attention. "There appears to be a mistake," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "My place setting is missing." The carefully choreographed scene played out exactly as planned. Frowns exchanged. Glances passed. Sean half stood, his concern a performance that never reached his eyes. "That's strange," Melissa said, scanning the table. "Did someone miscount?" Richard cleared his throat. "Perhaps there was a mix-up with the restaurant." Then came Sean's line, casual and rehearsed, making my skin crawl. He chuckled, really chuckled, and said, "Oops. Guess we miscounted." The family laughed. Not loudly, that would be obvious, but softly, as if sharing a private joke. At that moment, everything became crystal clear. The public setting had been carefully chosen to avoid any scene. They'd laid the groundwork for the story they'd tell later. The tale of poor Anna, who simply couldn't handle the pressures of the Caldwell family. My gaze swept slowly across the table, noting every face. Eleanor, triumphant behind a polished birthday smile. Richard, uneasy, yet complicit. Melissa and Thomas, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Their spouses, aware enough of the cruelty to show faint shame, but never enough to object. And Sean, my husband, the man who once vowed to stand by me against the world, watching with detached curiosity, like a scientist observing a lab experiment. I could have caused a scene, demanded a seat, exposed their scheme before the staff, made a public spectacle that would haunt their family stories for years. That's exactly what they wanted. That's the script they rehearsed. Eleanor would comfort Sean over his unstable wife, and the divorce narrative would write itself. Instead, I squared my shoulders, lifted my chin, and delivered the words that marked the start of my reclaiming power. "Seems I'm not family." For words. Simple. Devastatingly true. The smiles faltered. Sean's face shifted from smugness to uncertainty. I had broken free from their script. "I'll see myself out," I said, turning away with the calm dignity that had shielded me throughout my marriage. "Anna, don't be dramatic," Sean called after me, a rehearsed line from their playbook. "We can fix this." I said nothing. I walked through the restaurant, nodding politely to staff who'd witnessed my humiliation. In the elevator, I finally drew a deep breath. Then another. By the time I reached the street, my hands were steady. A small cafe across from the restaurant offered the perfect vantage point. I ordered an espresso and pulled out my phone. This was the moment I'd prepared for. 30 minutes of freedom, while the Caldwells congratulated themselves on successfully ejecting the unsuitable wife. First, I sent a carefully crafted email to Marco, the restaurant manager, with instructions we'd agreed on beforehand as a backup, a common practice in high-level event planning. Attached were proof of my authority as account holder and event coordinator, Confirmation of immediate payment reversal. Next came the calls. The vineyard for tomorrow's lunch. The private Vatican guide for the next day. The Amalfi Coast yacht captain. The villa in Tuscany for the final weekend. One by one, I canceled every booking, transferring deposits, paid via my company's credit line, back to my business account. With every cancellation, I felt lighter. Sean's emails started flooding in. First annoyed, then confused, then desperate as my plan became clear. I ignored them all. 28 minutes after leaving the restaurant, I finished my espresso and paid the bill. It was time for the final act. I smoothed my Valentino gown and crossed the street, ready to witness Eleanor Caldwell's flawless birthday unravel. Entering Aroma through the service entrance, familiar from my earlier inspection, I found Marco waiting with a concerned look. "Signora Caldwell, are you sure? This is quite unusual." "I am certain, Marco, and I appreciate your discretion." I handed him a sealed envelope. "This contains proof of the payment reversals and cancellation of my company's guarantee for tonight's expenses, as discussed. The Caldwells must provide new payment to continue their dinner." Marco nodded solemnly. In this industry, relationships matter. I had worked with Marco before on Boston clients visiting Rome. He owed me favors. While my requests might seem odd, professionalism required compliance. "When should I notify them?" he asked. "I'll text you in 5 minutes. I want to watch from a discreet spot." He led me to a small alcove near the kitchen, with a perfect view of the Caldwell table. They were mid-toast to Eleanor, champagne flutes raised, faces glowing with self-satisfaction. The first course had just arrived, imported Ostra caviar, Eleanor's special request. Dismantling Eleanor's birthday had been surprisingly easy. Most high-end vendors operate on networks of trust and reputation. As the planner who'd made every arrangement, and whose company's credit line secured deposits, I held the authority to make changes. The digital paper trail, emails, contracts, payment authorizations, bore my name and signature. Not Eleanor's. Not Sean's. My phone buzzed. A message from Sean. "Anna, where are you? Stop being childish and come back." Then another. "Mother is upset. You're embarrassing yourself." I didn't reply. Instead, I messaged Carmen at Villa Borza, where the family was to stay in Tuscany. Carmen confirmed cancellation and sent her regards, adding that my generous tip would be refunded to my business account. Sean's messages multiplied. "The hotel just called. Our reservation for tomorrow night is canceled. What are you doing? Anna, this is ridiculous. Call me now. This isn't funny. Fix it. Now." I texted Marco. "You may proceed." From my hidden spot, I watched Marco approach the table with 2 staff members. He bent down to speak quietly with Richard, seated opposite Eleanor. The family barely noticed at first. Then Richard's expression shifted, from polite interest to confusion to alarm. Richard pulled out his wallet, speaking more urgently to Marco. The manager shook his head apologetically and showed Richard something on his tablet. By now, the entire table had noticed the disturbance. Eleanor paused mid-bite, her poised demeanor beginning to crack. Sean was fixated on his phone, likely reading my latest message, which spelled out exactly what I had done. "All deposits have been refunded to my company account. All plans for the week canceled. Your family's financial troubles are about to go public. Enjoy your caviar." The scene unfolded like a precisely staged ballet of chaos. Richard stood abruptly, his face flushed with anger or shame. Maybe both. Eleanor's hand flew instinctively to her diamond necklace, clutching it for reassurance. Melissa whispered frantically to her husband, while Thomas pulled out his phone, likely scrambling to verify the news. And Sean? Sean remained frozen, his face drained of color. Unlike the others, he grasped the full gravity. He knew what I had uncovered about their finances. He knew the fallout when his mother's social circle learned the Caldwells couldn't cover a dinner bill, much less sustain their extravagant lifestyle.
My phone rang. Sean.
Calling, no longer texting. I ignored the call. He stood suddenly, nearly toppling his chair as he stepped away, dialing again. This time, I answered. Anna, he hissed, voice tight with anger and panic. What the hell are you doing? Seems I'm not family, I said evenly. So, I'm not responsible for family events. You have to fix this now. Do you know how humiliating this is for my mother? For all of us. I understand perfectly, Sean. That was the point. Where are you? His tone softened, desperation creeping in.
We need to talk.
I can explain. About Vanessa, about everything. I'm sure you can. But I've seen the financial statements. The emails. I know the Caldwell empire is crumbling. And I know you've been hiding assets offshore ahead of the divorce. His sharp gasp confirmed my suspicions. He never imagined I'd uncover these secrets. He, like his family, had underestimated me from the start. Those were private.
Yes.
Just like Vanessa's texts about the baby. Like the script for announcing our divorce at your mother's birthday. Like the seating plan, deliberately leaving me out. Silence on the line. At the restaurant, I saw the manager now addressing the entire table. Several other diners watched with barely concealed interest. The Caldwell's humiliation was becoming a public spectacle, exactly as planned for me. Anna, please. Sean's voice had lost its aristocratic edge. You don't understand what this will do to us. I understand perfectly. That's why I did it. We can fix this. Come back to the hotel. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes.
No, Sean.
I don't think that's possible. I hung up. Then I stepped from my hiding place. 12 pairs of eyes turned to me, some furious, some frightened, all incredulous. Eleanor spoke first, voice trembling with rage. How dare you ruin my birthday? I smiled, calm washing over me. I learned from the best, Eleanor. Isn't this exactly what you intended? A public shaming. A staged exit. The difference is I changed the ending. Richard stood. This is outrageous. You had no right. I had every right. I cut in. Every contract, reservation, and arrangement was under my name or my company's. I merely adjusted the plans. You'll regret this, Melissa spat. When Sean divorces you, you'll get nothing. That's where you're wrong, I said, locking eyes with Sean. I have copies of everything, the offshore accounts, hidden assets, fraudulent business dealings. The IRS will be very interested. Their faces paled as reality sank in. I felt no triumph, no vengeance, only liberation. I turned and walked away from the Caldwells for good. The next morning, I left Italy on a first-class flight to Boston, using points earned from planning the Caldwells' past trips. The irony wasn't lost on me. Behind me, a family in crisis, its carefully maintained facade collapsing. Through the hotel concierge, I learned the Caldwells had put down Eleanor's vintage Bulgari bracelet as collateral to pay for dinner until a wire transfer cleared. By morning, whispers had spread through Rome's elite hospitality circles about the famous American family's payment problems. Vendors I hadn't personally canceled began demanding upfront payments instead of credit. My phone flooded with messages.
Some threats.
Some pleas. I read them during a layover in London, sipping Earl Grey in the British Airways lounge. Richard, this is actionable. Our lawyers will contact you. Melissa, you've made the biggest mistake of your life.
Thomas.
Did you really think you could humiliate our family without consequences? But Eleanor's message was the most telling. I always knew you were common. This spiteful stunt only proves it. Then came Sean's final unraveling messages. You have no idea what you've done. My father had a mild heart episode. Is that what you wanted? The Prescotts and Whitmores saw everything. Do you understand what this means for our standing? Later, the hotel insisted on full payment for the entire week up front, explaining that all previous guarantees had been canceled. Then came the messages. Please, Anna, I need to talk. This goes beyond just us now. I ignored them all and instead forwarded the financial evidence I'd gathered to my attorney, instructing them to hold it securely until the moment it might be needed. If the Caldwells decided to sue, I would be ready. Back at our Beacon Hill brownstone, I arranged for movers to pack up my belongings. I took only what was undeniably mine: my clothes, Jewelry I'd purchased, my treasured first edition books, and the artwork I'd collected before marriage. Everything else, the wedding gifts, jointly bought items, remained behind. I wanted no remnants tying me to the Caldwell's tangled web. 2 days later, the Boston Globe ran a brief piece in the society section. Investment group faces inquiry. The article touched on financial irregularities and investor concerns. It wasn't headline news, but enough to stir whispers in Boston's social circles. A week after my return from Rome, Sean showed up at my new apartment unannounced. He looked worn down, his polished facade replaced by raw desperation. "You need to come home," he said as I opened the door. "This has gone too far." "This isn't a negotiation, Sean. It's divorce." He stepped inside without waiting, fingers running through his messy hair. "The SEC is investigating father's accounts. 2 board members resigned. Mother canceled her charity gala. 3 major donors pulled out." "That's your family's problem," I said coolly. "Not mine. It's your problem if I sink with the ship. We're still married. My debts are your debts." I allowed myself a small, bitter smile. "Not when I have proof you deliberately kept me in the dark about finances and hid assets to cheat me during divorce. My lawyer says that protects me." His veneer shattered. Sean sank onto my couch, head in his hands. "I never wanted it to end like this." "What did you want, Sean? To marry me for my event planning? To use me as social cover while you reunited with Vanessa? Then toss me aside when I was no longer convenient?" "It wasn't like that at first," he said quietly. "I did love you, but not enough to stand up to your family. Not enough to be honest." I sat across from him, strangely composed. "When is the baby due?" His head jerked up. "How did you?" 4 months, based on the texts." "Congratulations." A heavy silence settled. Outside, rain tapped on my apartment windows. It was smaller than the brownstone, but it was mine, paid for with earnings from a business I built without Caldwell help. "I'll give you whatever you want," Sean finally said. "Just hand over the documents and sign an NDA. Name your price." That was when I realized the Caldwells still didn't get me. After 5 years, they thought I could be bought, motivated by the same shallow concerns as them. "I don't want any money, Sean. I want freedom. I want truth." I stood, signaling the conversation was over. "The documents stay with my lawyer, unless you try to drag me down. Divorce terms are simple. I keep what's mine, you keep what's yours. And Vanessa, the baby," his voice barely audible. "That's between you and your conscience. I hope you're better to them than you were to me." After he left, I stood by the window, watching the rain grow heavier. The scandal unfolded over weeks. The Boston Globe published a detailed story on Caldwell Investments' financial troubles. Clients quietly pulled out funds. Eleanor's charity board roles shifted to emeritus status. Vanessa's pregnancy became public when she was spotted at her doctor's office, wearing an engagement ring. The timeline confirmed. Their affair resumed well before our marriage ended. In Boston's elite circles, discreet infidelity might be tolerated. But blatant betrayal broke the unspoken code. My business flourished. Perhaps because of the scandal, clients who once looked down on me now respected my integrity and discretion. The narrative wasn't about a scorned woman. It was about a professional who refused to be used and discarded. 6 months later, I laughed when I received an invitation. A bid request to plan Eleanor Caldwell's next charity gala. Apparently, desperation had trumped pride. I declined politely, citing a full calendar. The divorce finalized smoothly. Focused on saving face and finances, the Caldwells accepted my terms. Sean and Vanessa married quietly. Their daughter was born 2 weeks later. I sent no gift. On the first anniversary of that Rome night, I found myself planning another event in Italy, this time a celebrity wedding on the Amalfi Coast. Standing on a terrace overlooking the Mediterranean, phone in hand, vendors at my command, I realized something unexpected. I was happy. Not despite losing my marriage, but because of it. The Caldwells tried to diminish me, reduce me to an accessory in their story. Instead, they freed me to reclaim my own narrative. In losing what I thought I wanted, I found what I truly needed. Not acceptance from those who rejected me, but the courage to reject a life built on illusion. I raised my glass to the setting sun, toasting the empty chair that had shown me exactly where I belonged.